Welcome to Raising the Bar podcast,
sponsored by the Ashmore Law Firm.
We're your hosts and siblings,
Gary Ashmore
and Lori Ashmore Peters.
Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. All right, so we'd like to welcome you to this week's episode of Raising the Bar podcast, sponsored by
the Ashmore Law Firm
and co-hosted by myself, Gary Ashmore,
Lori Ashmore Peters. So I have a crick in my neck.
I don't know what's wrong with it.
I'm having a hard time looking at you.
I won't take it personal. Not a big deal.
I have no problem looking this way, but this way I'm a little.
I was wondering what you were doing.
So
but I thought,
listen,
okay,
all right. So
okay.
I'll try to make it through this episode looking at you. I have to turn my whole body to look at you.
Not a problem. Okay, we've got an amazing guest with us today. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Toni Scalise. I know her as Toni Scalise, and I'm sorry, but that's how I'm going to refer to you.
Go.
Okay.
That's how I roll.
That's how you roll.
That's how I roll.
Toni Scalise. I don't know all of the initials behind her name, but all I can tell you is
tell us.
She's awesome, and we've known each other since we were little. We won't go into how we originally met. But hold on, you were my little sister.
I was.
At Ursuline.
In high school.
In high school.
Okay.
So one of her older sisters was my big sister at Ursuline, and then when I became a junior, senior, you were my little sister.
Yes.
And I went to school with her older sisters. She went to Ursuline, I went to Jesuit. So
we've known each other
there's a connection.
There's a
the
connection.
Scalises and the Ashmores go back a long way and a long time.
Moons.
Many
Yes.
moons. Okay.
And so she is engaged, and we just had to, God bless her fiance for entering into the crazy family.
They love him.
But in all seriousness, we are going to have fun on this podcast, but it is a serious topic as far as your, therapy and counseling hat goes.
Yes.
And the work that you do is unbelievable. Thank you. I think we have one of your talks on our as a video. I think
that's right. We do.
On one of our sites.
Yes, that we gave to the or that y'all gave to the University Park Library.
Library.
Yep, sure was.
Absolutely amazing. And I know a lot of what you talked about was dealing with divorces, but for me, going through the grieving process after losing my husband, even though it's been 18 months, so much of it tracked with the grieving process of it all, whether you're going through a divorce or losing a loved one.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So I'm going to turn it to you, Toni, and give us all of the initials behind your name,
Initials don't matter.
your company name, and all of that.
So I started Corbella Counseling in 2009. And one of the biggest parts of starting it was that it was in kind of the area where I grew up. Because then there were, we had a connection with the community. And so I was able to speak at, the grade schools we went to, the high school we went to, and really kind of insert myself into the community, which really helped get us a following, for the counseling practice, which ended up being a group practice. But at the time, it was just myself. I'm a registered play therapist and a licensed professional counselor supervisor. So one of the things I do is bring master's level students into the practice, and they do all their hours under my supervision because I'm a former teacher. And so it kind of fills that little spot of being able to teach and help people grow. So.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's such, it's such a needed area, and it's such an important area because a lot of times, when people are going through divorce, they're thinking of just the husband and wife. And sometimes there's so much anger that's involved in it all that they just don't even think about what the children are going through.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the probably best parts of Corbella and kind of what sets us apart from other practices is that we treat the entire system. Because, you can take a child who's going through this and a counselor can work with them. But if the parents aren't involved in that process, then how do you generalize what they're learning in the play therapy to the actual homes? And so we now have 8 counselors. Will be 9 in the fall, and so we have a way where we can treat all different members of the family through the different counselors, and then together we all collaborate together so that we're all working for the best interest of the family, not just for one particular piece of that system. Because when one part of the system changes, the whole system changes.
Right.
And so making sure that parents know kind of what they need to be doing so that the child can grasp what they're learning in play therapy.
Right.
Do you find that a lot of parents are engaged with that approach?
So it kind of depends on where they are in their journey. So what I find, and you all probably can speak more to this, but you know, when parents come in and there's been a betrayal of some sort, because there's lots of different forms of betrayal, right?
Right.
It's not just infidelity, but when there has been a rift that has caused so much hurt and anger, then that parent is going through their own process, and sometimes they're just not emotionally available to do what we need them to do in that process. So what I typically do is tell them, hey, I'm going to tell you the ideal. Okay, the ideal would be that you spend 30 minutes a day with your child, that you know,
Right.
here's the
Right.
ideal, and here's what you can expect if you get that. You have to tell me, though, how much of that can you do right now? How much of that can you really commit to? You know, you're going through your own process, and typically that parent is seeing someone else at the practice to help them work through that. And, you know, they might say, 30 minutes a week, it's all I have right now between work and everything else. And we say, okay, with 30 minutes a week, here's what you can expect, and here's how long it might take for your child to kind of work through what they're working through. And so we really try to customize everything to where the parents are at that time. We do require that both parents be involved in the process. And so, because a lot of times therapists get triangulated, and
Yes.
instead of being able to focus on the child and what the child needs, we can end up in this being the middleman between the parents. And we weren't there. We don't know what happened. We're not here to be the judge. We're not the attorneys, you know, but a lot of times we get pulled into that process, which is unfortunate because it really detracts from the work that we're trying to do with that child. And so if we see high conflict, then we will refer them out to a parent facilitator and let the
Right.
parent facilitator handle that part while we focus on the child. And then our meetings with the parents are strictly about the children and not what's going on between
the
them.
two of them.
So it's been a work in progress of getting to this place of figuring out what we need to do so that we don't get stuck in the middle. Because
Right.
trust me, early on, I was in the middle of a lot going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Well, wait, so that leads to a question
Yeah.
of mine. How long have you been doing this now?
Well, 2006, but
Okay.
2009 is when I formed my practice.
Okay, so being so much wiser now. I'm not going to say older, I'm going to say
Not even
wiser.
wiser, of course. It is wiser.
Being so much wiser. What would you tell your younger self when you're getting into this area?
I would definitely tell my younger self to have grace for yourself, because when you get into this, you feel the weight of people's lives on your shoulder, and it's hard to not own their problems and their issues and the things they're presenting with.
Right.
So, but it happens. I mean, it takes time to learn how to leave that at the office and not
Yeah.
take that home, especially with kids. I mean, come on.
Oh,
like,
it
it's
breaks
so
your
sweet.
heart. Yeah.
But I would be really hard on myself if I wasn't doing that, or if I got into a situation and then I learned later, oh, no. You need to set something up in the beginning to say, we're not going to do this or that, or we're not going to keep secrets between parents, or so all of these things that I didn't know, I kind of had to just learn as I went, which is how we all grow, right?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And so I was really hard on myself, although I was encouraging growth through mistakes in my clients. I wasn't doing that for myself.
Were you not practicing what you preached?
I was not.
I mean, imagine
Yes.
that.
Yes. And so it would lead to this kind of, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not smart enough, or, should
Yeah.
be doing this. And luckily I have just my former supervisor, who was also my professor. She has always been so supportive. And so I could always call her, and it's just talking to your colleagues like you all do,
Right.
networking. Hey, are y'all experiencing this?
Right.
And gosh, I have to say, I'm just going to say it. I think the counseling world has the best level of support because everyone's counselors.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
You walk in our office and we're all sitting there and are you okay? And just everyone's so sweet.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
It's a great
Right.
profession to get that support in.
So how do you see that the counseling world has changed just with technology and these, I mean, can I say damn?
Sure, go
Damn
ahead.
iPhones and
Social
smartphones
media,
and social media.
TikTok,
I
Instagram.
mean, how do you see? Because I know what we see as far as attorneys go, but I cannot even imagine the counseling side of things, especially with kids, what you see.
Yes. So I just want to clarify. So are you talking about with the introduction of all this technology, how it affects how we do therapy, or more of how is technology having effect on the people we see?
The people you see, well, the
Yes.
people you see.
Yes. It's unreal the amount of anxiety that has spiked since the introduction of Facebook. I read an article, and I don't remember, I'm sorry, I can't name the resource, but it talked about that the rise in anxiety in adolescence is something like 300%.
Wow, I can
Since-
believe that.
I can't remember what the date was, but it was basically around the introduction of Facebook. And so it makes sense. I mean, they're comparing themselves to everyone. They
Right.
know where everyone is. I mean, this never happened to us in high school, but
Thank God.
we were never the ones that didn't get invited, right?
Right,
But
right.
nowadays, if you don't get invited,
Oh,
you see that you're not invited.
Yes, it's
You're watching
awful.
it happen in front of
Yeah.
your face. And for teens, that's just devastating to some of them. I've got so many young 20s clients right now going through breakups, relationships. And what I get is they stop sharing their location. Whereas when we broke up with someone, that was it.
Yeah.
You don't know
Right.
what happened to them. And so you can move on.
You can move on a lot faster.
And so then it's, they left me on red or they got this many likes. And it's just this constant wave of, do I belong or do I not belong?
Right.
Am I wanted or am I not wanted? Am I worthy or am I not worthy? It's a constant flow of that.
But how do you, I mean, I know everyone's different, but how do you counsel for that?
Well, it's all about figuring out how to help them find their own sense of self and their own worth.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So a lot of times we have to figure out, where does that lack of self-worth, where did that start?
Okay.
Right? And so we kind of go through that process with them of figuring out where it started, and then we'll do a reframe. For instance, if, some guy said that this girl was too needy, too much, and now she feels horrible because, we kind of do a reframe and get into the place of, okay, what were your needs with this person, and listing them out and saying, okay, has there ever been anyone that didn't think that those were too many needs? Well, yeah, but I broke up with them, or, so we
Right.
talk about how too needy is in the eye of the other person, not who you are.
Okay.
Because it may be too needy for that person, but that doesn't make you as a person too needy, because someone out there will meet those needs and be happy to meet those
Right.
needs.
That's right.
And so it's, how are you defining yourself within the context of these relationships? And as teenagers, unfortunately, they don't have the frontal lobe yet and the adult
Well,
brain to
right.
be able to do that.
And I was going to ask, with these teenagers or even those that are in their, younger 20s, how do they, like, it sounds good, and when they're talking to you, I think, they'll feel good and they get it, but how do you make sure that they continue getting that once they, leave your office?
Well, exactly, because that's just 45 minutes a week, 15 minutes a
Right.
week, or
Right.
every other
That's all
week.
you're seeing.
That's why it's so important in our practice that we include the parents in those
Got it.
in that process. So
Okay.
we are helping the parents. We're meeting with the parents, every few sessions, or emailing them, hey, this is what we worked on, and helping the parents figure out, okay, how can we support this so that we can elevate their self-worth? Unfortunately, we live in a time where there's a lot of overscheduling and there's so much pressure right now.
Right.
I think there's way more pressure on kids
Oh.
than when we were when we were younger.
Yes.
I don't even think my dad knew, like, where I was applying. I mean,
Right.
in our generation,
Parents are, I mean, unfortunately, I'll apologize to my kids because I'm not, but yes, there are parents that are really involved, and it's hard to know when you should be involved
Yes.
and when you shouldn't be involved.
yes.
And I probably take more of the approach, with one of my kids of not being probably as involved as I should be. But that's how we were raised.
But what is the,
But what's
the
that?
should? What's the
Right.
line, right? I
Right.
mean, I only have one child. But the family, where you have two children, the needs are different. You can't do it the same for both because it really depends on what they need and how close do they need you to be or how far. But I always say we are the generation that really got the short end of the stick because when we were growing up, most of us, it was about kind of our parents. Like it was, we were just kind of seeing, but
Right.
it was, if the parents said so, then the parents got what they wanted. The parents were
Yes.
not bending over backwards for us. It was, we need to adapt to wherever they
To
are.
them. That's
Right.
correct.
And now as parents, it's the same. So we never got that treatment.
Right, right.
Now we're supposed to bend over backwards for
The
our kids.
kids. Yeah, no.
So I always say this generation got the short end of the stick here.
I never thought of it that way because when my mom or dad said no, you can't, or else,
It was
you
easy.
never
Done.
wanted to
Can't.
ask what
Done.
the or else meant.
No.
These days, I try to tell my kids no or else. Or else
Yeah.
what?
What are you going to do about it? That's right.
Like,
Yes.
the or else didn't work.
Yes. So it's just it's swung so much, with that. But it really depends on where that child is, and in my opinion, bringing the whole family into the therapy on
Right.
some level is
Which
so
is
helpful.
well, it's helpful and it's important, especially this day of age, because everyone is going in different directions. And when you have working parents and kids that are in sports, nobody is in the same place very long. So, what made you decide to get into this area?
Wow. Well,
First you said you started as a teacher.
I started as a
Okay,
teacher.
so take us from college. You graduated, then what?
So ironically, I always wanted to do this.
Okay, all right.
Always.
All right.
In fact, at Ursuline, we had the senior retreat, and you had to write something out about. And mine was, I want to help
wow.
kids
Oh,
and
okay,
be
okay.
a counselor. But let's just say that in college, I didn't have quite the focus I needed to.
Did any of us?
I like the way she put that.
I need to remember how to
I'm
answer
going
that.
to be real honest here. I just wasn't in the right place to
Right.
really focus and follow that dream. So my roommate was an interdisciplinary studies major, and she was getting to do all these crafts and stuff. And I was like, well, that looks fun. So I changed my major to that from psychology. And I'm so glad that I did, though. You know how everything kind of works out the way it's
Right.
supposed to, because having that experience in the classrooms and getting to be a part of so many different families and kids, I got to see a lot. And that reinforced what I wanted to do. But I was making $19,000 at Lamplighter. And I was
Wow,
like, this is
okay.
not going to get me out of the house. So a friend of mine, her husband worked for this company. It was a startup, and there were 6 people there. And he said, I need somebody who can be in a camera and help train people. Well, I had just done teaching. I was
Okay,
like, yeah, I
right,
love to
right.
train people, and you'll make this much, but if we sell the company, you'll make this much. This is the .com days,
Okay.
right?
Yes,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I was like, let's go. I'm a risk taker. I'll do it. And the irony of that is it was all to get to that day we sold so that I could take that money and go back to school to do what I'm doing.
Okay.
And so we'd be at sales meetings, and they'd ask, what are your long-term goals? And I'd always write down, I want to be a counselor.
Okay. All right. Good.
And so my boss would say, Toni, what? We're
The company.
I said, I'm just being honest. I'm here for the payout.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So we did. We sold it, and I got a big payout, and I quit and went back to school
Okay.
and did this. But what really inspired me to want to do this, my mom passed away when I was 10. And so it was just my dad and my 2 sisters. And I had a therapist at that time, which I was so grateful that my dad did that, because in those times, not a lot of people went to therapy.
Correct.
And her name was Frances Brooker.
Okay, so wait, so hold on. It was your dad and 3 daughters.
Yes, my
Your
dad
poor
was left
father.
with 3
Your
daughters.
poor father. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
Yes. He used to say, look, if I come home and the toilet seat's up, I'm going to know someone was here.
That is great.
I love it.
It's a surefire way to know. No doubt about it.
So we told all our boyfriends to close the
Make
seat.
sure-
That's right. Don't, that's right.
Anyway, so I had this great therapist, and I saw her all the way through high school, and I'd go to college and come back home and see her. And so it kind of inspired me, because I thought, if I hadn't had her, I don't know,
Yeah.
how I would have worked through things. And so I went back to school. This is years later. And I go to take my son to the pediatrician where her office was, and she was still there.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So I
that's
write her this
cool.
letter, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, and I told her I'm graduating with my master's, because you inspired me and you were so helpful to me, blah, blah, blah. And not expecting to hear from her, she calls me.
Okay.
And so we get together for lunch.
Oh my gosh.
And we start hanging out together, and, she's much older now, and she's getting out of therapy, the therapy world,
Right,
while I'm
right.
coming in. And we got to be really close in
Wow.
our older age, and she still had my file, and it was just really a gift to be able to go back to my younger self and see, like,
Yeah.
what I was saying and what I was doing, because it validated so many things. Because a lot of times we might remember things and go, well, am I remembering that correctly?
Right.
Or,
Right. That's right.
and I was so young when my mom was sick. Was I just thinking that? And so it was just a huge gift to have that relationship.
Wow, that gives me chills.
That is crazy.
That is so
Well, you
so
just
cool.
never know how many lives you touch at any given time, and how many lives have touched yours that go around, come around.
Yes.
You just don't know. Life
It's
is
so
that short.
true. It is.
And it's that crazy.
is.
And I love that you knew what you wanted to do so young. I think my letter was, I want to be an astronaut. But for some reason, math just escaped me, so that didn't happen.
I have no idea what I wrote.
But it wasn't a lawyer.
No, I still don't know what I want to do. Can I still say that?
But you're very good at what you do.
Yes.
That's right. That's
Amen to
correct.
that.
All
Both
right.
of you are. Both of you.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny.
Yes.
So you brought up a huge point, and that is how you differentiate yourselves from other counselors and therapists, because there's a lot of them out there, just as there's a lot of lawyers out there. And the fact that you take not only the team approach, but the family approach, I think is huge. A lot of people don't do that, or they don't want to get on board with that. It's, no, I can represent the wife, or I can see the wife or the husband, or just the kids, but I don't want to see the parents. But you're right, that I don't know that does any good.
Yeah, and I think there's a place for all of it, right? Like,
Right.
We like this approach. It works for us. It fits with our philosophy of how, of a systems theory.
Right.
That, but I'm not going to say it can't work the other way. It can't work in other ways. It's just for our practice, this is what feels most comfortable for us. And for us, it feels like we're covering all the bases we need to cover to feel good about what we're doing.
That's right.
But that's not necessarily the only way or the right way, or it's just our way. And so, I think there are so many amazing practices in Dallas that, it's amazing what's offered, how much is offered
Yes,
out
that's
there
true.
now compared to when I started. I mean, there were not a ton of group practices, and now they're
Right.
everywhere.
Okay.
And so I feel like people really get to have a choice. And I'll tell families, interview other counselors.
Yes.
Make sure we're the fit, because it's not going to work for anyone.
Right.
And it's the same with you all. It's
is.
why I love y'all's approach. It's why I've agreed to team up with the Ashmore Law Firm versus any of the others, because I know that you truly take what's in their best interest.
Right.
And you're not just out to get a client.
That's right.
No, and it's amazing even for us. I mean, I'll have potentials come in to say I'm interviewing attorneys, and I'm like, fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, that's great, but let me at least educate you a little more,
Yes.
so that when you go to the next attorney,
know what
you
to
know a
ask.
little more.
Yes.
And you know what to ask.
And
That's a big
they're
one.
like, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that, because the last attorney we told that to, he was just like, there's the door. And I'm
Exactly.
like, Oh my word! No, you have to interview others because it
Yes.
has to be a good fit, both directions.
It does, absolutely.
I mean, that's what's so amazing.
That's right.
Yes.
Is it that Ursuline education, or is that the Italian Lebanese way of doing
Right.
things?
I'm going to go
That's
with the Italian Lebanese.
Agreed. That's
Way of
great.
doing things.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. All right, so I want to think of some other fun questions that we have asked some of our prior guests.
Oh boy.
Funniest story that you've ever heard,
In therapy,
either personally or in therapy.
think about this.
We know we can't name names. Or funny or just most outrageous. I mean, I don't know.
Most outrageous, I could definitely do.
Did your jaw drop?
It's usually with the kids.
Right.
I mean,
Did
the-
you just
the-
say
the
that?
kids
Because they
are
have
the-
no filter.
the kids
That's
are
what's
the best.
amazing.
So
And that's what's
there was-
fun.
I guess I can tell this story in here.
Just don't say the name. Yeah,
No,
you're fine.
but we have handcuffs in the playroom,
Okay.
and this little kid pulls them out, goes, oh, "My mommy and daddy had these."
That is great. That is beautiful.
So I'm sitting in a parent consult with him, trying not to laugh. I was trying to keep a straight face. I didn't tell him that the kids.
Okay, that is good.
That is a great
That's one of my favorites,
That is-
and that was early on,
is a
so I didn't
favorite.
quite know how to handle it.
That is hysterical.
So did you approach the parents with it or no?
You've seen that before. Okay.
Okay.
Oh my
You've
god.
seen those before. All right.
Were they in the back of a squad car?
I just left it at
Just leave it at that.
We would have wanted more
Yeah,
details.
exactly.
Can you tell us a little more?
Exactly. Yes.
Man,
Oh, that is
curiosity
great.
killed the cat.
Okay, so wait, did you approach the parents with it or no? You
not
didn't.
with
Okay,
that.
you left
No,
it alone.
I
All right.
figured I wasn't seeing any other behaviors that were like
Right.
going along with or that would cause me concern. So I
Right.
didn't think it was my
Okay.
business.
Oh, it's a good thing. That is great.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I would have pulled the mom aside to say, "Hey, I just have to ask."
Yeah.
This is
right.
off the record, and just me as a woman asking you as a woman.
Yes. Now on the flip side,
Mm-hmm.
probably the most emotional story I've
okay.
ever because you have those right where you just
Right.
and laughing, but you know, in order to be, I think, an effective therapist, I think it's super important you've done your own therapy and you've worked through your own stuff so that
Right.
you nothing's going to get triggered in a session that you haven't dealt with, or you're not trying to use your own sessions to do your own therapy in there. And so fortunately I had done so much of that, and especially dealing with losing my mom. But so anytime things come up, I've worked with families where the mom is sick, just like my mom was. I'm going to the house to do the sessions. I'm seeing her sick, no
Right.
hair, all of that stuff.
Wow.
But it doesn't, I truly am able to put myself in that child's shoes in what they're experiencing because I've done that work.
Right.
But there was one client that I'll never forget. It's the only session where when they left, I broke down in tears. And it was a really young girl. She was 8 and had 2 younger brothers, and the mom had taken her own life. Wow. And so I came in on a Saturday so that the dad could tell them that morning and then bring them right to the office where no one else was going to be there. So we just
okay.
did a special private,
Right.
they
Right.
just you didn't know how they were going to be, and so I asked her. We talked, and I had markers and paper, and I wanted to see like what she wanted to do and how she wanted to process it, and I said we can write a letter, and so she took some construction paper together and she stapled it together like a book, and I'm like, okay, and so. But then she writes in big letters and black marker on each page. She says, "Why did you leave me?" on each page.
Oh my god.
And I mean, I'll never forget this session. I mean, it was
course.
years ago, and it just, my heart sunk. And I don't even think that's because of my mom. I mean, it was just one of those sessions that
Right.
you just, gosh, how is this family going to do this? And then plus feeling this overwhelming gratitude that I get to be on this journey with them on such a private journey
Right.
that they've chosen me to help them with this and that they trust me to do this with them, because how personal is that, you know? And so they left, and I mean, right there in the hallway, I just dropped down and just sobbed. It was just one of those I'll never forget. You know, you probably have cases like that, right?
Yeah,
Well,
they
no,
are.
you do, but that right there, that story right there tells and shows that this is your passion and this is your calling. It's not a job.
Right.
Yes, for
I mean,
sure.
there are a lot of people that have, you know, that whether it's a counselor, therapist, attorney, I mean, whatever it is, it's either a job
Yes.
or it is truly your calling and your passion.
And your passion, correct.
And I know, I mean, for us, it's our calling and our passion, because
Yes.
this is not what we
Yes.
were ever going to do.
Right.
Yes.
And
Which
they-
is also
I mean,
why y'all are so reputable, and you know, because you're passionate about
we're
it.
passionate about it, yeah. And then just with Dad's legacy and making sure that his philosophy and legacy live on. That
Yes.
I mean, just stories like that.
So have you followed up, or do you know what happened? I guess what's the with that
So
family
saw
or
this
with
family. I saw her. 2 other counselors saw the brothers.
Right, okay.
Worked with Dad, and this girl is now graduating college, and asked me for a letter of recommendation because she is going in to get her master's in psychology.
See, there you go.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that chokes me up.
No, it gives me
That really
chills.
I feel so. Yeah, I mean, I saw her all the way
It's
through
amazing.
high
Right, of
school,
course, of course.
college. Not, I mean, she's thriving, and a big kudos to her dad. I mean, her dad has just been. He
Well, he
dropped
had to
his
keep it
life.
together, right.
He dropped his life
Right.
for these kids.
Right.
He never remarried. He has just been focused on them and so involved. And anytime I would call him and ask him to come in, or, you know, we might need to change or tweak the way that we say this to her, or
Right.
just tell me what I can do. I mean, that makes a huge difference.
He was
Right.
living for his
Difference.
kids.
See, it-
You
that-
know
and that's-
this
Yeah.
firsthand,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It's kind of all on you now, and that's a lot of pressure. And you know, you're having to tweak things, and you're by yourself doing it. You don't have someone else to.
There's not a good guy, bad
Exactly.
guy.
No more good,
I'm either the good guy or the bad cop.
Most
Right.
of the time, probably the bad cop.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When they're teenagers. But I admire you so much for the way you've handled all of this and the approach that you've taken to the kids.
thank you.
And there's just no easy way, and there's no manual.
I have a lot of discussions with my husband.
Yes. Yes.
2 kids and 2 black labs that are both males, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right, right.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
I know he's watching and he's just laughing. He's
right.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
having fun down
Good luck
there.
with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
No,
Yeah.
but it is, and it's such a difficult topic. But I mean, I'm even learning with myself. The more vulnerable that you are around people, you can touch so many people. I mean, even just with all of your stories, as you know, your personal stories, and how that truly helps so many people to know you're not alone.
No, and it's
I
a
mean,
connection.
it
It's
is
a
a
connection. When you
connection.
share that, and then they're able to recognize that and maybe relate to it in some form or fashion, then all of a sudden there's a connection there. And so I think that's huge.
It's about showing up authentically.
Yes, yes, and
That's a
it's
big part
it's a
of it.
relational connection, and it's a sincere connection.
Okay, so you've got some of those folks that say, "Oh, kids are resilient; they'll be fine." Is that really true? I mean, I know they're resilient because they're kids,
Yeah.
but can you make a blanket statement like that, or because we see a lot of, or I've seen a lot of parents that go through divorce, and you know, some of it's scorched earth, some of it they want to try to work things out. But when you try to let them know or suggest, you know, is your child in counseling? Let them see the therapist, even if it's a school counselor at the time. And no, they'll be fine. No, kids are resilient. I've been told that they're resilient. They're just going to be fine. I don't need to worry about that. I think that's not the right answer, correct?
Well, and if you think about it, and this has just been my experience, so I'm no expert on this. This has just been my experience, that a lot of times when a parent says they're fine, I have to clue into, okay, what I'm seeing isn't telling me that. So what may
Right.
be happening is this parent is not emotionally available for the child to be themselves fully with. And so they're presenting their best side to this parent
Right.
because they don't want to get in trouble, so the parent thinks they're fine. And probably the hardest part in working with families of divorce is when the child behaves one way at one parent's house and a completely different way at the other parent's house, because this parent is saying they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, and then the other parent, well, they don't do that with me.
Right. Oh my God.
They do it in
Hear
a lot
that
of
all the
times.
time.
They will do it in a very self-righteous kind of way, like,
Right.
well, for me, they're fine. But what it really says to me is this child is masking around them because they don't feel like they can really show the parent their emotions.
Right.
And it's not because the parent's a bad person. It just may be that parent doesn't know how to handle big emotions. Maybe they can't even handle their own big emotions. So how are they going to handle their child's big emotions? And so at that point, I'll do a little bit of psychoeducation, and I may break the parents up to see each of them individually so that the other one isn't sitting there, well,
That's right. That's right. That's what they'll do.
And so I think that whole they'll be fine, they might be fine.
Right.
They might be. What we know for sure, though, is that therapy in these types of situations, most often than not, is going to give them some benefits that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right.
So they might be fine, but could they be finer?
Right. There you go. Right. That's it. That's true.
Well,
That's true.
no, that is true, and they may be fine right now. But what's going to happen in 10 years, and 15 years, and 20 years with their relationships, or their, with their kids, with their spouse, with their, boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah, I also think that a lot of times when parents are going to get divorced, sometimes they'll come to me and say, "Hey, we're going to get divorced," which I love that they're preparing and they're like, "We want to have
Ahead of time.
therapy in place for them," and they're planning with us, right? How should we tell them? When should we tell them? Because those are like the most important times when you actually should be consulting a therapist, is before you
Right.
actually do anything, so that you know how to do it. And so if we're lucky enough to be part of that preparation, then what I'll say to them is, let's wait and give them some time to react before we actually bring them into therapy. I appreciate that you want us to
Right.
be there, but they may not even be processing it at this time. I mean, I can honestly tell you that after my mom passed away, I was 10. I'm sure everyone thought, "Oh, poor Toni." There was part of me that was okay because I wasn't really connected to her because she had been sick for so long. So I didn't really have a relationship. I wasn't attached to her, right? And my dad was gone all the time at the hospital. And I was staying with friends and my grandparents and being carted
Right.
around everywhere, And so there was a part of me that thought, I can have some normalcy again.
Yeah.
And so I didn't start therapy right away. In fact, the day after the funeral, I looked at my dad and I said, "Are you not taking me to school?" He said, "Well, I was going to give you the rest of the week." I wanted to go to school.
Right. So, yeah.
But I think as adults, sometimes we assume, they're going to be struggling, and sometimes kids are happy that their parents aren't together anymore because they're not fighting all the time.
Right.
And it's a
true.
relief to them. And y'all, you
Yeah.
deal with this probably more than I do.
Well, you do, and we I know early on, and I do not handle family law, but just with friends, they would say, "Oh, we need to stay together until the kids are 18," and I'm like, I mean, I don't do family law. I'm not a counselor, but is that really good for the kid to kids know, kids hear,
Yes.
kids see.
Yes.
If you think you're hiding it, you're not.
Yes. Well, what's ironic about that is, I'm divorced. I divorced when my son was 8. But we did it in a way, there was no infidelity. It was just, we were in counseling for 5 years together. I mean, we worked on it. And so we had a lot of respect for each other for the work we had done, but it just wasn't going to work. And so when we got divorced, obviously I had this training, so we knew what to do. And we were able to, we're still super close. I mean, we still do Christmas Eve, just my ex, me, and my son together. Right. I mean, we still do all of these things together, which is great. But at the time, I remember him saying, "We can't do this to him. We got to stay together. We got to stay together." And I knew just from my work that the statistics show that oftentimes they fare better through a divorce when they're younger because they haven't had you together all that time. And kids at that age tend to be a lot more adaptive.
Okay.
So they can adapt.
That's good.
Now, I will say that older kids, teens, react much differently and are way more reactive to the divorce as teens than what I see young kids being. And it's because they have an opinion now. They,
That's right.
you know, well, you're always mean to dad, or you're mean to mom. You know, and then they want to get involved. Well, what happened? I want to know what happened. And you know,
Right.
and I even have like adults that I see whose parents are getting divorced, and they're
Oh, right.
devastated.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Devastated because they've been together 60 years.
That's
Why
right.
now?
Right.
Why do
now?
they have to do this now? I just had my kid. I want to go to have them
That's
go
right.
to their grandparents' house.
Right. One house.
You know, so I mean, that's something to think about. And just, you know, if there is a lot of conflict, it is so much better to get out
Right.
as soon
Right.
as you can, so that these kids are not constantly hearing that over and over, because it does have a huge effect on them.
So that's funny bringing up the gray divorce. We call it the gray divorce.
Yes.
But the complaints that we get from the kids that are now adults, they're in their 40s and
Yes.
50s. Well, selfishly, it's. Do you know what that's going to do to me? Now I've got to deal with both of you separately. Y'all are really causing a problem in my life.
Yes.
Like, what are you talking about? I can't deal with your mother or father anymore, and you're
Yes.
saying, no, y'all got to stay together for my
exactly.
benefit.
Oh my
What are you
gosh.
talking
much
about?
for me.
That's right. You can't do this.
I get that.
funny.
I totally get that.
Right, see?
I mean,
I know.
oh
That's
my
how it
gosh.
is.
Oh my
So-
gosh. Okay, so with our podcast being called Raising the Bar,
Yes.
how do you feel you have raised the bar either professionally and or personally?
This is so hard for me to talk about.
You do
talk
so
about
much
other
good.
stuff.
You do so
I
much
know, right?
good that it's not even funny, but how do you see?
I think probably the biggest way I've raised the bar professionally is when I bring people on with Corbella, I will actually pay to get them trained in something that they're passionate about. And a lot of these certifications and trainings are really expensive. And, you know, our counselors pretty much pick their own schedule. It's not a 9-to-5 job, you know. And so it's a true expense out of the practice to do that. However, I feel that, you know, if you have somebody investing in you, like people invested in me, then we're much more likely to perform at our best.
Right.
And so it's a way for me to let them know that I believe in them, not just in their skill level, but I also believe in their ability to stay for the long haul and be a part of the practice. And we really are like a family. I mean, we've all been there for years. And
That's
it just,
fantastic.
you know, I actually got in the car today when we left the office with my fiance, and I got in the car and I said, I have the best team. I mean, I say it all the
that's
time.
remarkable.
I'm
That's
so
great.
fortunate.
Yeah.
And so I do feel that, you know, they feel, okay, she believes in me. And so to me, that's one way of raising the bar, is making sure people are trained in their passion, specialty.
Right.
That
Of
is
course.
fantastic.
That is good. That's good. I like that.
I sometimes feel like I have the best team with him. It just
Yeah.
depends.
It
Well,
just
it
depends on the day.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
I don't
depends on
know.
the
When I
day.
was with y'all were really fighting that day. You know, I kind of thought,
But we were also
So-
eating.
That's
We
right.
were
You're
eating.
eating. That's right.
yes, we were.
So one of the things we like, and we've teamed up with you as well, is that, you know, we're trying to get the message out there that there is a big difference, and a lot of law firms don't really get this, is there's a difference between the real divorce and the legal divorce.
Yes.
And they're completely separate. And if you don't separate them, it's a appetite for disaster.
Yes.
It's just the ingredients don't work. And so many people don't get that. And so we appreciate obviously working with you and Corbella that you know, we can provide the resource to our clients that, hey, listen, someone else that's better suited to handle the real divorce, that's who you need to talk to help you navigate. We'll handle the legal side,
Yes.
but you've got to deal with the emotional side. And you've
Yes.
got to deal with how you're going to tell the kids and how you're going to bring the kids through this journey. And so thank you for that. And that's just been an amazing resource. And that is so big, I think, for people to understand is there's a difference.
Well, thank you all, because we certainly don't know the legal stuff. And when we start to get dragged into the legal parts, it's really scary as a therapist.
It is,
because we're not trained in that. We don't, we're just there to help the kid, and so that can be really scary for us. So you all have been a really great resource for us, especially with your service of having Hamid be able to just talk to them and right away, and you all being able to just have someone in there going, I don't know what to do, what the next steps are, and just say, call the Ashmore Law Firm, because I know that you all have their best interest at heart, and that you'll collaborate with us as well, that you're willing to take the time to collaborate and say what's in the best interest. I really am looking forward to working with Hamid and doing those consultations where, we have the legal and the psychological component all in one meeting.
Yeah.
That's just great. I'm excited about that.
That's going to be a great
sure,
thing.
for sure.
And so how do people find you?
So our website is Corbella, Corbella, counseling.com, 214-433-6433.
Perfect.
Okay.
And we ready to help.
Now, do you take insurance? You don't take insurance?
We're private pay.
Private pay, okay.
Yes.
And
everyone kind of has their own rates.
Okay.
It depends on who you're seeing and what you're seeing them for. I mainly handle couples, adults, and 4 of us are trained in EMDR, which is a trauma.
I was going to ask you about
therapy approach.
EMDR. You're a
Yes.
supporter of that,
Yes, that's one of the things I got them trained in.
right?
And so there's just a plethora of different types of services. So, when you call in or you email, whatever it might be, you just let them know, what are the presenting concerns and who is it for? And then Christy, who handles all of that, will decide which therapist is probably the best fit based on what they're presenting and their age. But we have clients from age 3 all the way up into their 80s.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I have to ask this. Have you ever had a family where you're dealing with divorced parents already, and because of the counseling, they've gotten back together?
One.
All right.
Wow. What a
Okay.
question.
Yeah, no, I've been wondering about
Oh my
this.
God.
Never been
Gosh.
asked that. One.
Okay, so any details? Can you give us
Yeah,
some?
so
I mean, divorced a
when- I
long
mean, it was-
time.
Well, whenever we're going to work with a child, we interview the parents first, just
Okay.
to make sure that we can work with them, not just the child.
Right.
Because if they're going to be part of the process, we need to make sure that they are willing to and that they trust us and they're on board with it and those
Right.
kinds of things. And with this particular couple, I just felt that it wasn't done. I mean, there was no
Okay.
infidelity. There wasn't any big betrayal. To me, it was more about their attachment styles and just not being able, speaking Chinese to each other, because one had a really anxious attachment style and the other had a very avoidant attachment style. And so it's like speaking Chinese, right?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't translate. And so what I asked them to do is if they would be open to having a few sessions with me, just them, to learn their attachment styles, and not for the sake of staying together, because that wasn't what I was trying to do.
Right.
But it's going to help you in your relationship with your children. It's going to help you in future relationships, because I saw this conflict arising between them because of the language barrier, and I thought, boy, if they divorce, this is going to get even worse for the kids, because at this house they can talk about their feelings, at this house they can't, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Right.
And so I really was doing it more for that purpose. And over the course of learning about it, they started realizing that this was the issue. And I will never forget,
great.
there was a session and there was like a horrible storm coming into Dallas. And I'm on the 8th floor of the Energy Square Tower. And we're getting there and the tears start flowing. And one of them reaches out and hugs the person and says, I never knew.
Oh, wow.
I never knew. And they just start hugging. And all of a sudden, the sirens go off for the tornado.
This is it.
gosh.
We're going.
And I'm so locked in that I don't hear the sirens.
Okay.
So I'm like this. And they stop and they're like, should we do something? And I was like, Oh,
Do,
I was just.
Wait, do what? Y'all keep going.
I was so engrossed in it. I couldn't believe what was happening,
Oh,
and
my
I was like
God.
enjoying this moment so
Right.
much.
Oh, my
And this is
gosh.
why I say, yes, we help people. I truly believe I get the most out of this because, I mean, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Of course.
And it just,
It's
as,
huge.
Oh,
I think
wow.
it gives. I think if you're a therapist, you have good perspective because you see all kinds of things in your office, and you can go home and go, you know what, I'm okay. Like,
Yeah.
this is okay. I feel so lucky to get to witness that kind of interaction and growth.
See, that's good.
That
That's
is-
good.
that's cool.
And you're on the good side of it. So
Yes.
they refer to attorneys as counselors, and obviously we hear all of it.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard it all. But I think for attorneys, or certainly for me, I probably jaded for that very reason. And it's like, get married, really? I mean, unless it's the most perfect person.
Yes.
No, why would I want to step into that? Because I know the outcome.
Yes.
And so
yes.
I'm probably more on the jaded side versus you who
You
see the
definitely
beauty
are.
in it.
Yes.
And
Well, you have my
and
card.
it's,
I was
okay,
gonna
yes.
say,
Well, it's never too late.
That most
Never
perfect
too late.
person doesn't exist.
I fit in between the 3 and the 80-year-olds, so I'm
Listen to
okay.
the sister,
This is good.
the most perfect person to listen
Does
to.
not exist.
I love this. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I love this.
Darn it.
I mean,
Calling him out.
Marriage is a lot
Marriage
of
is
work.
hard.
It's a
It
lot
is
of
a
work.
lot of
It's
work,
a
and
lot
it's
of
a
work.
lot of compromise.
It is.
It
I
is.
mean, as long as if you're both willing to do the work,
Yes.
Yeah.
and neither of you is above doing that,
Yes.
Right.
then it can be an amazing relationship.
There are
I've
many a
seen-
day that Rick would just roll his eyes.
At you, right?
I mean, I don't know why.
No, you're right. But no, it is great to have someone because it's lonely otherwise. I mean, it can be.
I'm sure.
It
I
can
mean,
be.
because you hear it all day long, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're hearing all the
Bad stuff.
downsides.
That's right.
I mean, all I
right.
have to say is if you do end up with someone, I can't imagine what that prenup's going to look like. Man, probably be the longest prenup in the history of prenups.
So I do.
Wait, Big Bang Theory, you're going to be the Sheldon Cooper.
Oh, right. It's got the agreement. Oh, you've got to have
All
the
tabs,
roommate
initial,
agreement.
yes.
I could see him on the second date. So, how do you
That's
feel
right.
about a prenup?
That's right. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
That is great.
I love you guys so
This has
much.
been so fun.
It's so fun to reunite with
It
y'all.
is. It is.
Okay, so I'd like to do this again, and I'll tell
Yes.
you why. There are so many avenues and so many things that we could just pick a topic and talk forever on.
sure.
That is important, and I think that is
Yes.
educational, and people need to hear about. You just touched on EMDR. I know is it fairly new, or has it been
It's not.
around?
It's been around a long time.
But-
I think the reason we're hearing so much more about it is that the trainings have become more available.
There we go.
So as more people learned it and went out, now it's way more accessible.
Okay.
I also think since the introduction of Zoom, and it's much more accessible as well
Right.
through that.
Okay.
So
Okay. And it truly is. Is it a trauma fixer? How do you? Because and again, maybe we'll have you back on
Yeah,
the show,
we need
and
to
and
have
we want to
just
talk
about
about just
that.
about
Yeah, we could
EMDR.
talk
Yeah.
about that.
But I guess in a sentence or two, what is it? What's the value, or what does it do?
Yes. So it can be used for a variety of things.
Right.
Okay. But at its basic level, you're taking memories or things that have occurred in your life or even are currently occurring that are stuck in a maladaptive state, meaning that when you think about it, you experience emotions about it.
Right.
Just as you did then.
Okay.
And so you can get stuck in this maladaptive state. And so let's say, my mom died. I had an abandonment wound, right?
Okay.
So anytime after that, it was very easy for me to feel rejected or not wanted, or not because she abandoned me on purpose.
No. Right.
But as a child, you still experience it the same way. And so every interaction after that is like compounded on that, right? And so you suddenly have this web from starting with that, death of my mom, and then other situations that happened throughout my life where I felt that same feeling because it was triggering that main memory, okay? And so what it does is it takes you to that state, and it through the processing of the bilateral stimulation and the therapist walking you through it, you're able to take that from the maladaptive state and put it in an adaptive state where you can now see it because you might know logically I shouldn't feel this way,
Right.
but
Your body still
the body
reacts.
says something else,
Correct.
right?
That's
and so
correct.
what it does is it integrates to where you can think it and know it and
Right.
feel it.
Okay.
And so it's just taking it from one part of the brain, bringing it to the other, so that now when you think of that, you can see it in a more positive light or a more
Right.
settled, calm light.
Yes.
Versus as if you're experiencing it over and over. So that's at the very basic.
Basic,
level.
okay.
It's amazing.
I like maladaptive state. I like that word. I'm gonna use that
He's
now.
going to start using it, but just make sure
I just
you
need
use it properly.
The right way?
Like
Okay.
Joey on Friends with the quotes.
Right.
Yeah. She's
You're going through a maladaptive state. That's all I know.
She's gonna call you. Hey, I need your help. Sorry, I'm in a maladaptive state. Right
That's
now.
exactly right. I'm going to use it tonight. That's
Yeah.
right. All right. So yes, I would love to have you back because there are so many things like that
Yes.
we can talk about. That and it's a serious topic, but not that you're making light of it, but there is positives from all these
There's
things
positives. There's silver linings
Right.
around it all.
around it
Yes,
all. That's
yes,
exactly
for
right.
sure.
Okay.
I appreciate y'all having me and happy to come anytime. I mean, even the divorce stuff we've talked about. You can take any one of those pieces and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
for hours
That's
about
right.
what's the best way to do this. And again, everybody's different. Every family is different. Every family's like a fingerprint. You know.
Right.
And one of the things we talk about, you were talking about grief. We have a book in our office called "Grief is Like a Snowflake," because not everyone grieves the same.
Exactly.
And
Right.
so, when we see that, especially with siblings, one of the reasons we say tell your kids separately about the divorce, because one might cry about it, the other might not be upset at all,
right.
and another one might, but they might be looking to their siblings of, oh, well, I'm not crying. Is there something wrong with me because I'm not crying?
Right.
Because everyone grieves differently.
See, and that's a huge difference. So in the olden days, I'm going to go back 10, 15 years, it was from counselors and therapists, okay, you need to get the family together and you
Yes.
need to tell them all at once.
Yes.
And that was just what you did.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
right, you had so many different emotions and reactions. One's screaming, one's yelling, how can you? The other one could care less. They want to go visit with their friends. And so that's amazing and that's important.
Yes, I've even had siblings who, like, we were seeing, let's say one of the parents passed away, and
Okay.
we were seeing both siblings. And one of the siblings was upset with the other one because the other one wasn't crying.
Oh, see, right.
And they're mad because that means how can you
didn't
not
care.
cry? Did you not love Dad? Did you not, And it's just everyone processes very
Differently, right. So there was an old-timey book, right? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yes.
Is it still valid anymore?
So I never actually thought it was valid myself.
Right.
Be real
well,
honest.
You mentioned the couple that got together, they were talking Chinese to each other, right? Right.
Yes.
Right.
In theory, I thought the book was great, and I think it got the point across.
Got the point
right?
across. That
So
men and women are not wired the same.
They are not.
They are not wired.
They're
the
not
same.
born wired the same.
However, what we find is when it comes to relationships, they both want very much of the same things.
right.
And
Okay, good.
John Gottman is his curriculum is really what I base a lot of my couples counseling on, as well as attachment theory and all of that. But he's done extensive research
Right.
over the years, and he says that both men and women will say that what drove them to an affair, let's say, or infidelity was not the sex, but in both men and women, the percentage was the same. 90% of them reported it was the loss of friendship. So that's where that's one of the misconceptions about men and
Yeah,
women.
of course.
Right?
Wow.
and so
I like that.
I'm very big on empirical evidence and empirical data.
Uh-huh.
And that's
right.
why I like him, because he has so much data that is amazing.
Right.
So
Right.
That's interesting.
It is very interesting. That's cool. Okay, all right. We could talk forever, but we probably need to get back to our
We
real
do
lives.
our real jobs.
Our real jobs, our real lives, and let Toni get back on her way.
yes.
Okay, so thank you again for being here today.
Absolutely.
This
so
has been
much.
great. It's been amazing information. We're definitely going to have Toni back again, and you need to stay tuned.
Thanks to our sponsor, the Ashmore Law Firm.
We specialize in probate, estate planning, family law, guardianship, personal injury, and civil litigation.
You can find us at ashmorelaw.com.
Or by calling us at 214-559-7202.
Again, that's ashmorelaw.com.
Or calling 214-559-7202.